The apartment was exactly as described in the online ad, small with peeling walls and a damp smell that seemed to penetrate to the bones. Even so, for Emma Wilson, that space represented the promise of a new beginning. "It's just for now," she whispered to herself as she watched the real estate agent open the dusty windows. The late afternoon light reluctantly entered, illuminating the dust particles dancing in the air. $500 a month, including water and electricity, the man explained, his voice echoing in the empty space. "This is the best I could find with your budget." Emma nodded, clutching the strap of her worn-out bag where she kept all her savings. 3 months working double shifts as a waitress to save enough for the deposit and the first month's rent. It wasn't what she had dreamed of as a child, flipping through the pages of decoration magazines at her parents' house, imagining her future 2-story home with a blooming garden. But dreams change. People change. Or maybe they simply show their true faces when you least expect it. "I'll stay with it," said Emma, forcing a smile. "When can I move in?" "Tomorrow, if you want. I just need you to sign the papers." As she signed the lease agreement, Emma felt a chill down her spine, as if someone was watching her. She instinctively turned to the window, but there was only the gray sky of the afternoon turning into night. The way back to her friend's apartment, where she was temporarily staying, seemed longer today. Emma walked slowly, observing the shop windows, trying to ignore her reflection in the glass. At 22, she seemed to have aged a decade in the past few months. The deep dark circles, the dull brown hair tied in a messy bun, the shoulders hunched under the invisible weight of disappointment. This wasn't how she imagined herself in her 20s. In her teenage dreams, she would be finishing college now, maybe starting a promising career alongside someone who truly loved her. Instead, she was divorced, working as a waitress, about to move into a one-room apartment with suspicious stains on the carpet. Her right hand unconsciously touched the mark left by the wedding ring that was no longer there. 4 years had passed since she met Ryan at a mutual friend's party. He, at 26, with dark hair and a charming smile, seemed so mature and self-assured compared to the guys her age. "You seem lost in thought," he said that night, offering her a drink. "Can I try to guess what you're thinking?" Emma smiled, intrigued. "Go ahead. You're thinking that everyone here seems to know exactly what they want from life while you're still trying to figure it out." The accuracy of his observation left her speechless. It was exactly what she was thinking as she watched her friends discussing career and future plans. "How did you know?" Ryan smiled, moving a little closer. "I recognize the look. I've been in your shoes before." That night they talked for hours. Ryan talked about his difficult childhood, about how he had worked since he was 16 to support himself, about his dreams of one day starting his own business. Emma shared her doubts about the future, her love for literature, and her desire to travel the world. When the sun was starting to rise, Ryan took her home and asked for her number. "I promise this won't be the last time we see each other," he said with that smile that seemed to hold all the secrets of the universe. Emma smiled at the bittersweet memory. How he had kept that promise by calling the next day and inviting her for coffee. How in 2 weeks they were officially dating. How in 6 months he was already talking about marriage. "He's too old for you," her father had said when she introduced him to the family. Thomas Wilson was a quiet man of few words. But when he spoke, his words carried weight. "And there's something about him. I can't trust him." "Dad, you're being unfair," Emma protested. "Ryan works hard, has ambitions. He loves me." Thomas just shook his head, exchanging a meaningful look with his wife, Helena. "True love is in no hurry, Emma. Marriage is a lifelong commitment. Think carefully." But Emma, with the obstinacy of an 18-year-old, was certain she had found her prince charming. Ryan made her feel special, grown up, as if together they could conquer the world. 6 months later, against her parents' advice, Emma wore a simple white dress at a civil ceremony with only a few friends as witnesses. Ryan held her hands, promising eternal love, while her parents watched with tense smiles. "Don't forget to call us often, my dear. We'll always be here if you need us," said her father, Thomas, hugging her tightly in farewell after Ryan announced they would be moving to the capital. "I'll think about whether I'll call or take the opportunity to run away from you," Emma replied with a mischievous smile, trying to ease the tension of the moment. "Don't even joke about something like that," my daughter," Thomas responded, his blue eyes serious. "You know how much we love you. I'd find you no matter what." The smell of freshly brewed coffee filled the small apartment when Beth, her co-worker and friend, arrived from the night shift. "So, what was the place like?" she asked, throwing herself onto the sofa next to Emma. "Habitable," Emma replied with a half-smile. "It's not the Ritz, but it's mine. I'm signing the contract early tomorrow." "I'm proud of you," Beth said, squeezing her hand. 3 months ago, you arrived here empty-handed, crying over that useless ex-husband. Now you're moving on. Emma nodded, feeling a lump in her throat. She hadn't told Beth everything. She hadn't mentioned how she avoided calling her parents, ashamed of her marriage's failure. How sometimes she would wake up in the middle of the night hearing her ex-husband Ryan's voice. "The women in the capital are much more interesting than you. Thank you for everything, Beth. I don't know what I would have done without you." "That's what friends are for," Beth replied, yawning. "Now, I'm going to get some sleep before the next shift, and you should do the same." Emma agreed. But after Beth went to the bedroom, she stayed on the sofa, staring at the wall. Tomorrow would be the start of her new life, alone, without Ryan, without her parents, without the comfort of the life she once knew. She picked up her phone, looking at her parents' number in the contact list. The last contact had been 3 months ago, a brief message on her mother's birthday. She didn't have the courage to call, to hear the concern in their voices, to admit that they had been right about Ryan all along. With a sigh, she put the phone aside. Tomorrow would be a new day. The building where her new apartment was located was old, with a peeling facade and an elevator that seemed to defy the law of gravity with each ascent. Emma was carrying a small suitcase with her clothes and a box with some books and photos. All that remained of her previous life. When she got out of the elevator on the 4th floor, she felt a chill. The hallway was deserted, but she had the strange sensation of not being alone. She hurried her steps to apartment 412, where the real estate agent had promised to meet her with the keys. He had not arrived yet. Emma leaned against the wall next to the door, checking her watch. She was 15 minutes early. She closed her eyes for a moment, feeling the fatigue of the last few days, the sleepless nights, the double shifts. It was then she felt a hand on her shoulder. The heart raced. She turned abruptly, ready to scream when she saw a familiar face, gentle blue eyes, gray hair at the temples, the same comforting smile she had known forever. "Dad," she whispered, incredulous. Thomas Wilson smiled, his eyes shining with restrained emotion. "I promised I would find you." Emma dropped the suitcase, throwing herself into her father's arms, the tears she had held back for months, finally finding release. She sobbed against his chest as she did when she was a child after a nightmare. How did you find me?" she asked between sobs. "Your friend Beth found our number and contacted us," Thomas explained, stroking her hair. "She was worried about you. She said you were moving today and gave us the address." Emma pulled away slightly, wiping her tears. "I didn't want you to know. To know that I failed, that my marriage ended. That Ryan—" "Shh," Thomas interrupted, holding her face in his hands. "You didn't fail, my daughter. Some relationships just aren't meant to last. This is not your fault." "But you warned me," Emma said, her voice choked. "You said marriage is forever, that I should think it over. And now here I am, divorced at 22, living in an apartment I can barely afford." "It's true. I told you that," Thomas agreed. "But I also told you that we would always be available if you needed us. Your mother and I love you, Emma, no matter what happens." Emma closed her eyes, remembering her father's last words before her move to the capital. "Come back home with me, my daughter." "I can't," Emma replied, hesitant. "I have a job here. I just rented this apartment." "Your mother has already secured a spot for you at the municipal library," Thomas said. "And as for the apartment, well, I think losing the deposit is a small price to pay to have you back home." Emma hesitated. The idea of returning home to the comfort of her childhood room, to her mother's meals, to the late-night talks with her father. It was tempting but also frightening. "What if I fail again?" she asked in a low voice. Thomas smiled, his eyes full of understanding. "Then you will try again. That's how life works, Emma. We don't measure our worth by our failures, but by our courage to keep trying. At that moment, the real estate agent arrived, the keys jingling in his hand. Miss Wilson, are you ready to enter your new home? Emma looked at the man, then at her father, and finally at the keys that symbolized her forced independence, her self-imposed isolation. With a deep sigh, she made her decision. Actually, she said with a genuine smile, the first in months. There's been a change of plans. The journey back home was long, but comfortably silent. Emma watched the landscape through the car window, seeing the big city fade into the distance, giving way to open fields, small towns, and finally the familiar streets of her hometown. Your father respected your silence, interrupting only occasionally to offer water or ask if you needed to stop. Emma appreciated this space to organize her thoughts, to process everything that had happened in recent months. When they finally arrived at her childhood home, her mother was waiting on the porch, her anxious face transforming into pure joy as soon as she saw her step out of the car. Emma ran into her arms, feeling simultaneously adult and child, strong and vulnerable. "My girl," Helena whispered, holding her tight. "Welcome back." That night, after a dinner filled with Emma's favorite foods, the three of them sat in the living room. Emma recounted everything. How Ryan had changed after moving to the capital. How he openly cheated on her. How she had left with only the clothes on her back, too ashamed to ask for help. "I felt so stupid," she admitted, staring at the cup of tea in her hands. "You all warned me about him, and I didn't want to listen." "The heart has its reasons, which reason knows nothing of," Helena quoted softly. "You were in love, dear. Sometimes we need to make our own mistakes to grow." "But I wasted so much time," Emma lamented. 4 years of my life." "You didn't waste it," Thomas intervened. "You gained experience, wisdom. You learned about yourself, about what you want and don't want in a relationship. That is valuable." Emma reflected on her father's words. Perhaps he was right. Maybe this wasn't the end of her story, but just the closing of a chapter. "What do I do now?" she asked, more to herself than to her parents. "Now," Helena replied, "you rest, heal, and when you're ready, you begin again. The library is waiting for you, but there's no rush. And remember," Thomas added, "a strong and loving family is a safe harbor to return to when life surprises us with plots we didn't expect." Emma smiled, feeling a weight lift from her shoulders. She had left everything behind after the divorce, her dreams, her self-esteem, her connection with her parents. But now she realized that the most important things had never truly been lost. The love of her parents, the inner strength she didn't even know she had, the ability to start over. All of this remained intact, waiting for her to claim it. That night, lying in her old bed, Emma looked at the stars shining through the window. Tomorrow would be a new day, and this time she would not be alone.